Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Bell Falls Search Focus on Talent video series. This is the Digital Marketing Edition. Our guest today is another friend of mine, former college buddy from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, home of the Spartans. He's a previous coworker and also a client. Based out of Atlanta, he started his own marketing agency several years ago, and today his firm delivers high-end digital campaigns in what I like to describe as immersive experiential events across several different industries. His unique approach to integrating music and soul into his work has been a large differentiating factor into his success. I am honored to have with us today Arnold Huffman, CEO of Yalo, a marketing agency. Arnold, welcome and thanks for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Ron. Glad to be here.
So, that was my intro. I'm sure it didn't do it justice. Can you kind of reset things and talk about you and, primarily your career progression? How did you get started coming out of college? I know you had some years at Accenture and implementing big processes and systems, and now you're running a very creative marketing agency. Can you talk through that progression and then also give us an overview of who Yalo is?
Sure. Yeah, so I get that question a lot, especially from about to be new graduates, having gone to Case Western Reserve. As you know, I was a chemical engineer undergraduate, and now being in the marketing field, a long way away from where I started and where I'm at today. So in between, there were stops at Accenture doing large scale supply chain, real, I guess if you want to call it nitty gritty type stuff. From there, moved into a software role, working for a software company, building partnerships with companies like Accenture, Deloitte, and others to have them implement our software. And that's where I got a lot more involved with sales and marketing, just kind of as an umbrella term. I wasn't in sales and I wasn't in marketing, but we had to do both of those things to build these partnerships. And so after I left there, was again another 8 years roughly there, 8-9 years at Accenture. Prior to that, finally actually went into marketing at Rosetta, where a lot of us were together as well. And after that, I was leading the business development team. We got purchased by Publicis in the middle of that. Some of the goals started changing, and so I decided that as the head of sales, a lot of that weight was going to fall on me for these new goals and directions that they wanted to sell into. So I looked at the pipeline, said there's plenty of work out there, lots of clients who need good help. Why not us? So timing was interesting. We had just had our third kid, and the wife was questioning whether it was exactly the right time to get started or not. But nonetheless, I think as most people will say, right, there's never a good time. Just gotta pull the ripcord and let it roll. So yeah, so that was 9 years ago. We're in our 9th year, and so far so good. So one of the things I get asked, what does Yalo mean? Because it is a different word. One of my jokes is that when you've ever gone out, ventured, started a company, that there are no English words left to name anything. Everything's been taken, or the URL has already been taken. So I had been to Fiji once and basically went onto the internet, looked up a dictionary for Fiji terms, and just started searching for English words and what the equivalent was in Fiji. Landed on the word soul, which means Yalo in Fiji, and had a nice ring to it, short, sweet, and I felt like was a good centerpiece to build around in terms of how do we want to do this differently for clients. So that became kind of the kernel, and from there we've built a whole methodology that's really embodiment of what does soul mean for us helping our clients' brands. The way we do that is looking through the lens of film, art, music, and sports to come up with unique ideas for our clients. And the reason we use that lens is because film, art, music, and sports, one of those are very relatable in everybody's everyday life. And so our goal for our clients is to create marketing and material and content that is relatable to their customer base. And so we use that film, art, music, sports angle to figure out where that is. So one of the ways that comes to life in our process, most folks who've been in marketing will have had the pleasure of going through a creative brief, which, as I describe, is the hopes, dreams, and expectations the client has of what they want said project to look like when we get to the other end of it. And the reality is that it's a bunch of words on paper, and those words on paper, it becomes our job to distill those into something that's going to be creative. And so the way we do that, we go through the creative brief. The last step in our process is what we call the soul song exercise. And what we ask is, if this project, whether it's a website, a video, campaign, if this project were a song, what song would this be? And what we're really trying to do is take all those words, those hopes, dreams, and expectations the client has just shared with us through the creative brief question and answering process, and get that distilled down to a central attitude, one singular emotion that we want people or the project to evoke when it's completed. So it's an excellent exercise for our clients to step away from all the details of what they think they want to accomplish and really kind of get at the heart of the matter. We build a playlist with the client, and we whittle that down to one specific song that becomes the guiding light for the project from a creative standpoint.
So, you and I have talked about this over the years, and I've always been pretty intrigued by it. Is there an example or two, or a I don't know, a fond memory of a client in a song, or a I don't know what the word is I'm looking here for, that you can talk about? You don't have to mention the client or a specific example if you don't want to, but is there one that rings a bell that, is a great application of this concept?
Yeah, so I think I'll make two comments. One, the ones that really buy into the process and we really have deep dialogue about why different songs fit their goals and what they want the output to feel like. Those ones turn out the best, right? Because we really work hard to get down to one song that becomes the embodiment. The others who look at the exercise and can't really associate what they want with the song to be a representation of it, struggle with it. And we know at that moment, which is, when you do the creative brief is early in the process, we know at that point already in that project that the design process could be difficult, right? Because they have a hard time zeroing in on what is it they want, really, is what it comes down to. So it's as much as a psychological process going through the soul song exercise with the client as it is helping really focus our creative and us being able to do our job to our best ability. So that's one comment. The second comment I'll make to answer your question more specifically, yeah, we've had clients, pick Any Way You Want It by Journey. We've had clients pick Outcast, So Fresh and So Clean. We just did one within the last year that was Money Talks by AC/DC. We've had obscure Elton John songs, pop songs like Blurred Lines. It all comes down to the conversation about what do you want, again, the attitude of this to feel like. And so those who buy into it, really, I believe when we get to the end of the project, get exactly what they wanted out of it at the end. And those who struggle with the process, may not have the same level of confidence and pride at the end of the project because they had a hard time putting their finger on which way should the ship be moving here earlier on, or, early in the process. So, but yeah, the Any Way You Want It by Journey, the CMO actually played that song when we unveiled the initial demo of the website to the rest of the executive management team, even described. She didn't tell them why the song was playing, but then once she got into the presentation of the demo, explained what you're seeing is an exact representation of the song I was playing. You might be wondering why I was playing that, and that's why. Here's the direct output from that. And the executives all were nodding their head and saying, yeah, I can see and feel that coming across in our new website.
Oh, very cool. That had to be pretty meaningful for you too at the end of it as well to see that come together.
Nice validation.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk about talent a little bit. You've always been somebody when we've worked together, both as kind of client and service provider and as coworker, someone who I thought's always done a really good job at attracting talent, at retaining talent, and more importantly, evaluating and assessing talent. At the same time, you've been, we live in this world today where everyone's virtual and getting used to this new working environment. You were way ahead of the curve with that with Yalo. I mean, it was 5-6 years ago, you were having a distributed team and were able to manage through that and pretty successfully. As it relates now, so transitioning over to talent, so as it relates to students coming out of college, or entry level workers, as it relates to marketing and your industry and what you see delivering, what would you advise that segment of kind of the workforce on what they should think about, what they should study, what they should be prepared for as they go into looking for their role and want to make a contribution to our space?
Yeah, I actually think this applies to just about any industry. There might be some that it doesn't work for, but in general, because I talk to a lot of soon-to-be graduates from Case, right? And they're engineers, business majors, and social work right across the board. And one of the first things I tell them is don't spend so much time on your resume. I guess is probably the first thing, right? Resume is just data, and it's presented terribly on a sheet of paper with a bunch of bullet points and words and numbers. So the first thing I would say to them is, I give this advice to a lot of them, is take your story and turn it into a presentation and create a presentation about yourself and who you are and what makes you tick, what makes you interesting for this job. And that's why I think it works in multiple industries, not just ours. Now, ours is visual, and so that certainly helps some more of somebody being able to put their who am I on a page visually and tell that story. But I think it works in any industry, right? Because anybody who's hiring someone wants to hire somebody that has a direction and a motivation and a determination, and that doesn't come across in data points in a resume. It comes across in how you describe yourself and the thing, who you are and how you tick. The second thing I would say is that, to me, if we were presented with resumes, and this one even back to way back, but more use a Rosetta data point one time. I was doing some interviewing for Rosetta, and we get all these resumes from Miami, Ohio, and Case, and all these places, right? And I would always interview the lesser GPA folks, because what I was more interested in is the activity, which is the shortest part of the resume, your extracurricular activities, but that's where I would spend all of my time talking to them. And I remember this one cat, his extracurricular, he had been a Greek dancer, heritage dancer for, Greek culture since he was like 8, and he still was, right? Despite maybe all of his friends maybe teasing him and making fun of him, as a college graduate, still doing the traditional Greek dances back home, right? And I said, that's a guy who knows who he is. That's a guy who doesn't care what other people think and has a passion and commitment to something that's not what everybody else might think is cool, right? Yeah. And I went to, and he didn't have the best GPA. And I actually, you had to fill out a form, right? So I filled out the form and I wrote in huge letters, hire him because he's a Greek dancer. And the HR called me and they're like, you can't be serious. Because they were like, his GPA is not that good, and we're not hiring him just because he's a dancer. And I explained it to them, and they understood it. There's still some challenges with the GPA, which again, to me, I would overlook that, right? I would say this guy has values. He's got, like you said, drive, commitment, passion about something that maybe isn't cool. So tell your story on slides, and to play up the extracurricular things that you do, because that really gives a much better picture of who you are.
Yeah, and be a leader in them at the same time. Just don't participate in them, like go out on a limb, take those extra roles when you can. I know we're running out of time, so I'll get to my next subject, or my last subject. As a hiring manager and someone who's, interviewed and looked at lots of resumes over the years and talked to lots of candidates, What would you suggest to people looking to differentiate themselves, in the process against, other competition for those roles, or, and maybe even an example or two you've seen, if you have any top of mind, that really set one candidate apart from another?
Yeah, I think it's how you present yourself. Another thing that I talk to, especially new graduates about, is communication. Come across clean, come across polished, have very specific things you want to say. The second thing around communication that I think is really important is your ability to move in the moment of the conversation. So having 5 questions prepared that you're going to ask the person that you look down and you read it, right, in the interview, it shows you did your work, but it doesn't, you're not really being nimble on your feet. And
Hmm.
so I think in the ability to present yourself in a clear, concise communication manner, but also be relaxed and be able to move and pivot based on what you're hearing the other person saying in their interview, I think carries shows how well those young folks can carry themselves in a lot more complicated situations.
Gotcha. All right. Well, cool. Well, Arnold, I appreciate your time. This has been very helpful, and I will, share a link to your profile on LinkedIn and Yalo, and link to the conversation, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Yep, sounds good.
All
Appreciate it,
right.
Rob.
Take care. See you, Arnold.
Bye.